Can I make a point? Because this is a point I've wanted to make for a long time. When we look at countries like Cuba and China, I think it's more important to judge them based on what they had before the revolution. Before Cuba had a revolution, nobody had access to healthcare. They were working on slave plantations that were dominated by Western multinational corporations. China before the revolution, yes, there were famines during the era of Mao. There were far more famines before Mao came to power and before China was able to industrialize and get to the point today where they're now one of the most powerful countries on earth. In the 1950s, the US was already industrialized. China had to do that. They were a semi-feudal country in extreme poverty. And in just 70 plus years, they've become this economic superpower.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, yeah, Midwestern Mark, Eddie kills it. I know people have a lot of issues with Midwestern Marks because I don't know if he's still a Pat sock, but yeah, that whole MAGA communism stuff, that was bad, like, and we clearly don't want that. I think he was trying to support that and get on board with that. Maybe he got fooled by it. And I don't think he supports land back either, which is really bizarre. Like, he said some whack-ass shit about it. Something about, like, neo-colonial, imperialist, like, counter-imperial, I don't know, man. You know, so not, you know, critical support to Midwestern Marks, right? The you know, how he's cooking in this video is top tier. And yeah, I mean, he brought up a point I brought up as well, how China was developing from I said feudal, semi-feudal, you know, it was straight up like a feudal nation. But yeah, I mean, if you want to say semi-feudal, that works too. And same thing with Cuba, where, you know, slave plantations dominated by multinational Western corporations. Hence why, you know, capital had such a vested interest in, you know, trying to stop Cuba. And so, I mean, sure, like the USSR collapsed, whatever the hell that means, but here we are with Cuba, China, Vietnam, all still, I mean, Cuba's struggling and they're still going. Vietnam and China are thriving and still going. So, like, here are these projects that are constantly getting anally fucked by embargoes, imperialism, war, just blockades, tariffs, you know, all these UN manipulation and legislation, all of that stuff, and they're still succeeding, right? Where it's like in the West, I mean, you know, because their comparison is always like, these three motherfuckers benefit from capitalism, right? But like Malumbo being straight up black American, like he will not have the level. I mean, some of them do, but like statistically speaking, like resourcefully speaking, financially speaking, generationally speaking, he's the first American. His family is from Congo, so that probably, that's not exactly, dude. This is insane. Like black Americans and black Americans in slavery, indigenous genocide, all the wars and terrible atrocities we committed. Like all of that stuff is capitalism, man. Like all of that stuff is profit motive. The state taking control. You know, they can say they're trying to defeat communism, but holy crap, it's not like it's working. So I mean, you know, this is what happens, man. Like, we just run in circles all day long, taking their arguments, breaking them down, showing how they're stupid, and being right all the same. And so, I mean, at least, you know, Eddie brings up a good point here, how they've dealt with all that pressure, similar to what I said, you know, that they've actually managed to sustain this long, because it's true.
In the 1950s, the U.S. was already industrialized. China had to do that. They were a semi-feudal country in extreme poverty. And in just 70 plus years, they've become this economic superpower. That is through central economic planning and, yes, allowing some of those private markets in.
That's by undercutting the U.S. on labor, because they don't actually have to pay people very much. They don't have to pay them based on their value, so they can make people come over there and work far cheaper, have their companies there, and then we buy their products cheaper. We are propping up China's economy, and we've been really stupid with our own policies when it comes to that. And also, we are constantly hamstringing ourselves because our government keeps regulating our economy more, getting more involved, tying its hands, so that they are outpacing us, plus all the money we're spending on war, instead of actually like letting people keep their taxes and invest in more things. So they are playing us right now. The U.S. has been really foolish, but it's not because communism works. They were starving up until 1979. Let's look at
man, oh man. So much bullshit from one little white lady. Where do we even start? So the United States government has been deteriorating the vast majority of the internal structures and institutions that we've had, where she also notes how the wars and expansion stuff, you know, is also an insanely large amount of part of the budget that affects, you know, God, I don't even know how to take this apart. Like the whole reason that those, like, capitalism exported those jobs to China, like how Like, communism brought jobs from a capitalist country to their country. And you think that's a win for capitalism? Like, she talks about how the United States is getting more and more involved with the market, but that is statistically, scientifically, materially not true. Just goes to show again what the lack of what no theory does to a motherfucker, man. Like, what they're not operating in reality. It's idealism. So it's all these bizarre arguments that aren't true, that have contradictions, they don't make sense. It doesn't add up at all. You know, and this is just anti-China stuff. This is just, you know, Asian people bad. You know, and I'm sure because she hates their policies with it because, you know, yeah, Chinese products are so cheap and bad, right? Like, not like American companies purchase those products because they are so cheap and they can make the most money by offering the lowest quality products and the cheapest quality products to their own people in America. That's, you know, that's God, how do you fuck this up so bad? Like, how are you misunderstanding that? Like, everything she said, when you actually materially look at it, proves the opposite of what she just said. But this is what happens, man, when people can just say stuff and they don't actually know or learn anything. So, I mean, well, let's see, right? What's Eddie gonna say?
Exactly
When
what they
trade
did.
opened
Let's
up
look
with
at
them.
exactly what they did when they opened up trade. They opened up special economic zones where multinational corporations could come in, but they said you're only allowed to do things as long as it's in line with the party and as long as it's in line with the government's central plans. I mean, to say that China's just capitalist, full stop, or that all their
I'm not
successes
saying that
come
they are
from
capitalists. I'm
capitalism
saying that they were
is pretty
starving
ridiculous.
before capitalism.
Oh, I didn't pause the thing in the edit, my bad. But yeah, I mean, there it is, right? Like, internal divisions already starting where, you know, like, it's so, dude, there'll be something that comes up about whether or not North Korea is communist in the later part of the video. And that's just like a linguistic thing, like you know, whether or not like North Korea is not communist in the sense that it's not a stateless, classless, moneyless society, but it's communist in the sense that the Communist Party runs it. It's communist ideology running the government. It's a socialist nation transitioning to communism or seeking to do so. So that's you know, that's why that is. But here he is, right, where it's like the infighting already begins. Yeah, I mean, because capitalists themselves compete against each other for their own pursuits of profit. They can't even have a united front, and this just goes to show as well, right, where that culture is showing. Like, if you can't already tell, like, you'll see this in the rest of the video. The communists are very much united. Like, you know, yikes, excuse me. Yeah, like, there's weird burping stuff going on. You're probably gonna hear like weird excuse me's and stuff in the video and edit, but. Yeah, trying to like film and stuff while I'm like burping is kind of a pain in the ass. So sorry for the burp. Yes. This like the lack of teamwork, the lack of solidarity, the lack of unity. Is obviously going to show up with the capitalist side because they have their social reputations to uphold, their own image in the conversation. You know, they all operate independently, effectively, right? Where it's like, I mean, dude, from the moment, like, I don't know about, I mean, for me personally, when I like meet communists or like see communists, like, you like instantly feel a degree of like familiarity and commonality, like they're comrades, right? And like, you know, I think you'll see in this video like that, like, you know, there's a much stronger unity amongst the communists than there are capitalists, and that just also gives credit to the ideology, to the system, to the culture, the history, this class struggle, and that capitalists will not have. So yeah.
They were starving under feudalism.
Hannah and Cam come in here with the guns. They got the fire. They know they're ready for this. Who is we? When you say we, who is in this we? Because we did this, because we did that. Who is this
again,
metaphorical we?
Because the U.S. government is not a capitalist government, and we have to be strict about terms here.
The United States government is not a capitalist government. I mean, I don't know if this is their yeah, like Eddie's face is my face, and Malimbo's face, like, are you serious? Like, if you don't think the United States is capitalist, like, I don't even know if they ask her in the video. We'll see. And this just goes to show what I'm talking about. Like, she has no proper material. The United States is not capitalist. Like, why should people deserve to remain in this discussion if they say shit like that? Why should anyone be like, listen to what this woman says after you say that, right? Like, it's just insane. You know, they're like, this woman doesn't know what she's talking. Hannah doesn't know what she's talking about. Like that's the truth. That's objectively true. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Like that's as true as like the sky is blue. But you can't say that because it's mean or like it's, you know, inconsiderate or something how, you know, you have to find a way to successfully maneuver around that where it's like you don't have a proper understanding of like this and this and this. Like it's hard to do that. But when people, I mean, how can anyone have a good discussion when this is just, we have to be strict about term? Oh my God, she's saying strict about terms here. Like, are you in? This is ridiculous. This is insane.
Capitalism is a system and an economy. The government can either uphold capitalism or they can impede it. Our government is constantly impeding it. So when the government comes in and tells you, you can trade with this person, you can't trade with that person, that is the government, which is weak. So we have a representative government doing that. Is that something I as a capitalist want to see them doing?
An American citizen.
No,
we
I
are
don't.
American citizens,
but we are American citizens, and so they are supposed to be representing our interest. If we're going to talk about what we're doing as a country, yes, like that. That is the government, which is weak. So we have a representative government doing that. Is that something I as a capitalist want to see them doing?
An American citizen.
No,
we
I
are
don't.
American citizens,
but we are American citizens, and so they are supposed to be representing our interest. If we're going to talk about what we're doing as a country, yes, like that is a huge part of it. And I also want to go back to communism because when you talk about some of these countries that people often call democratic socialist countries, they rank higher on the economic freedom index than we do. That means they are more capitalist in their economy.
And I don't think those countries.
Yeah, I mean, I think Eddie's about to say it, but that those countries aren't real communism, because they're not. Social democracy is the moderate wing of fascism, and fascism is a state capitalist order. Like this, she's gonna literally talk this entire video, and everything she's going to say is probably going to be the exact opposite of true because of the lack of material analysis. There's like a next level stupidity at play here, and she's playing both sides as well. Because she's saying like the United States government is supposed to represent our interests, but it doesn't, right? Where it's like, then how? What is this about? Like how? Like what? Why doesn't the United States government represent your interests of the American people? And it's like it's such an easy answer, man. If you're a Marxist, it's because it's a capitalist country. But when you're like, dude, you know, we got to go back to communism because the social democratic countries on the economic freedom index. Because what she's pointing to is the economic development in the social democratic nations like Scandinavian nations, for example, they have the same levels of development and trade with other nations, development and they have like a market economy, right? It's a liberal democracy under capital. Like those are still capitalist countries. Like I don't know how to break it to you, Hannah, but they're capitalist countries. Like, and if she's like they're not capitalist countries, like how? Like we have to have like she wants to be strict with terms, and yet she's completely full of shit. So what are you supposed to do when somebody's just talking and they're fucking wrong? Like how is telling them to shut the fuck up not the correct response? It's the only reason we don't do it is because it's mean. We don't do it because it's false. We don't do it because it's mean. And like how is like we need to grow the fuck up, man. She's spewing bullshit and nonsense, and it's so demoralizing because you have to sit there and go through all of this, but you don't. We should not have to take a bunch of just nonsense, complete nonsense from a bunch of grifting losers. Man, yeah, I'm getting triggered watching this. It is gonna be what it is. Yeah. And so I think Eddie's about to say they're not social or they're not communist countries. Let's see what happens.
We are socialist, to be clear. So I just want to make sure we're defining terms because communism is the centralized control and ownership of production of companies. Sorry, but this is my point I'm trying to make. Like we have to talk about actual systems that are communist if we're going to debate this.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm starting to realize that I think I feel bad for Hannah now. Why do I feel bad for Hannah? Because women have spent their entire lives having to try to get words in conversations, and they're constantly being talked over and stuff. So you kind of get like this weird, smarmy, snarky, like, no, I'm trying to make my point. I'm trying to which again, her point is total bullshit. And he's about to say like, this is antithetical to what we're, you want to analyze communism by what it actually is, but then she's gonna misrepresent what communism is. But like if you say it's not true and you're trying to clarify, she's trying to say it's her point. Like, yeah. I just feel bad because, I mean, she is the only woman there. Or not, sorry, she's not the only woman there. She's the only capitalist woman there. And, one of the funny things about capitalism and, like, the Western society and stuff like that is that it doesn't care about women. It doesn't, like, this Hannah woman who's going to defend capitalism for the entire video will go back to her, like, bourgeois world, petite bourgeois world, and, like, gonna deal with sexism left and right. Like, people aren't gonna take her opinion seriously. They're not gonna listen to her right. Like, communists are trying to take this, like, we're trying to put the best foot forward with this because we give a shit. And I mean, these people think they do too, right? But the thing is, like, when you actually look at the culture around capitalism, like the culture around people who justify capitalism, like, they don't even, unless you're like a straight white man, like, you're kind of playing with, you're rolling your dice there, man. Like, these, because who's next? Like, who are they gonna, like, if you're a trans person and you're a capitalist, like, what weed are you smoking, bro? Like, what drugs are you on? Like, how? So there's like this weird thing where it's like, she's constantly going to live in a world where they don't literally value her opinion by the same system she's defending. But then, of course, when she finally does actually get the place to be heard and spoken and stuff, it's, it's very awkward. And that's probably why some of like like smarmy, snarky vibes that are coming out of her, come from this. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's, maybe it's not about patriarchy and stuff, but I do wonder, like, how much that plays a fact into it. I've seen a lot of it myself. I've known a lot of women, especially white women, who have been Republicans and conservatives their entire lives, and like they literally, like the same men and system they support, like that world, they don't listen to them. They don't like hear out that women have to regularly like accept and play this game of like the world around me will not treat me as equal, and I have to play to that, and it becomes so subconsciously embedded that it's hard to notice that. It's kind of a tangent, but I don't know. The main point is, right, it's like we have to keep things real. We have to get to the point. We have to be for real about what's actually going on if you want to have like a correct discussion. Otherwise, it's just pure nonsense and BS.